Welcome to Two Loose Cannons, the brand new, shiniest podcast on the net. My name's Liam. This here is Ross. How was your weekend, mate?
Good, mate. Good. Yeah, enjoyed the footy.
Yeah, what happened?
What about yours? Yeah, it was all right. I mean, we sort of went and saw a few games and enjoyed the, especially Sunday night. It was a ripper.
Yeah.
So, yeah, had some fun.
Yeah, it started well and ended well for you, didn't it?
It did. It did start well and end well. I was very happy with the Thursday night game, and I was even happier with the last game of the round, which was, of course, Thilthorpe Port.
Yeah, just on that real quick. What do you make of the rivalry? Is it real or is it fake?
Look, I watched the boys shaking hands and hugging and having a chat, and they were still there a good 2-3 minutes later on the field, still hugging and chatting. And so, look, I think for the game, it was great. It built it up. It was ferocious. It was everything I expected, except for Hawthorn, I guess, sort of that not able to score in that first half. But it was everything I expected from the rivalry. And then it was, I don't know how to take that when you see players just sort of being, chatty and that, because it was built up. But then maybe it's an AFL thing, maybe it's a...
Yeah, did they build it up too much? Because, it felt as a neutral supporter for you at the ground, it probably would have been everything. That's what you've wanted.
I think we kept it nice and calm. Like during the week, there was a lot of respect from the Port side. There was talk about, this is going to be a tough game and they're a good team. And so they said all the right things. It felt a little bit like a build-up to a showdown, except there's a bit more of the toing and throwing, I guess, in the showdowns. Had that atmosphere about it at the ground, though. It really did have that showdown feel.
Yeah.
It's the closest I reckon I've ever come to without being the showdown. And then to just see the way the boys started, it was amazing. It took me back to that Sydney game where we probably thought last year when we beat Sydney by 100 points, we were going there expecting to maybe be the close one or perhaps lose a close one. And we ended up smashing them by over 100. So I had that real feel of last year when we took on Sydney. But we always knew Hawthorn was going to come back. They were just too good a team not to show up in the second half.
Well, that's it. And I said during the week, and you guys don't know, but I felt as if Port were going to be up and about. Ken is an emotional coach, and he has that team driving on emotional. It's like an abusive relationship.
It is. It's definitely an abusive relationship. I think, look, we look back to 2 years ago when just prior to them going on that 13-game win streak where Ken's job was spoken about, and Treaders, of course, comes out and says what he says about being untenable, and then the boys fire. I think Koshy never should have come out and said his job was safe. They were definitely working on emotion. If we had taken that into the finals, and perhaps who knows what might have happened. And then the last year the same thing happened. We get smashed by Brisbane, who weren't even up and going by that stage. And then he comes out the St Kilda game, just barely gets over the line. He gets emotional. We have some tears and the boys just lift. And again, Koshy comes out on the eve of the finals and says his job's safe again. So, and then what happens? We see the Geelong game. They got up for the Hawthorn game, which I reckon was pretty good. And then, of course, they go out to Sydney in the prelim, which is just what's par for the course at the moment.
Yeah. So 100% right.
And this has been the problem. And the supporters don't hate Ken. They love Ken for what he's done for the club. They hate the inconsistencies, the ups and downs. There's just nothing from week to week that you can pin it on. When we went through that 13-game win streak, I think a lot of us were expecting it to sort of be, okay, well, this is great, and they're playing on all this emotion, but it's going to end. And when it did end, it ended badly because we went out straight sets, didn't we?
Yep. Well, no, full well. So that sounds like you're high for the weekend.
Well, really, my high for the weekend was watching Manchester United get done 4-0, I think it was. Yeah.
No, 4-1. Garnacho.
4-1, sorry. 4-1.
You've got to give us that.
Yeah, so that was probably over the court. Because I guess that was fresher in my memory. It sort of happened this morning, the Man U loss. But, and it's always good. I mean, if I can't see it, I did see a close loss, I must admit. But Man U loss doesn't.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not going to talk about that. That's crap. I want to start by making a public apology to Volkaneo.
No, come on, mate. What's Kane done now? What do you mean a public apology?
I've got to make an apology to the Volcano. He's talked.
Okay.
And he on Sunday he proved he was right.
Well, what did he say Sunday that proved he was right?
It's not what he said. It's what he did.
Well, what did he do? Did he jump in?
He became the greatest of all time.
We're talking about the same cane. We're talking about cane
We're
corns.
talking about Alexander Volkaneo.
Of course, the Volcano.
Yeah, the guy that doesn't get spoken about enough. You talk about our boxers, our mediocre boxers here like they're gods. But this bloke is the greatest of all time.
Yeah,
in the featherweight division.
Yep, I agree with you.
And, you know, you listen to the UFC pundits and they'll tell you he's the best. There's no one better.
Mm.
But, you know, he walks down the street and nine people out of 10 will not recognise him.
Yeah. I think but is that boxing or is it... I guess we get behind the Kosh Jesus boys and because we know Kosh, so we follow Tim and...
Yeah, there's a bit of that. But, again, going back to Horn, and maybe it's because he beat Pacquiao.
Definitely because he beat
Pacquiao. A D-level boxing fights, you know, Barry Hall versus the next...
Well, I think we're seeing too much of the Paul boys getting involved in boxing, and that lowers the standard by a long way. I mean, when we had the great Mundine and Green fights, they were publicised, and people there was that level of dislike for Mundine that pushed those fights over the line.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Volkanov goes about his business is very quiet.
Yeah, he is.
It's not exactly a glamorous weight group either, you know.
No. Well, now what's next for him? No one really seems to know. You know, did they go back to Rodriguez, who he completely outclassed?
Maybe.
And it looked good in his last fight, but I just don't see that fight selling.
No, and maybe he has to step up. Maybe he has to step up a weight.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Possibility, but just thought I'd put a little bit of respect on his name.
I'm glad you went Volkanovski and not Kane the Volcano.
Yeah, that's the way it was looking there for a second.
Much as I love Big Volcano, I'm not sure about you respecting him, though.
Not a chance. So that's what we liked.
Yeah.
Now, we know what I think we're both in agreement on this. What didn't we like? And that is the abysmal performance of all the umpires again this weekend.
I agree with you.
Started on Thursday night, sorry. The one thing that stood out for me was the 15-metre kick. You know, it's now being ruled 35-metre kicks are not 15-metre kicks. At what point do we stop?
Yeah.
I still think even if we mark the field in 10-metre increments, the umpires will still be wrong.
No, it's something I think we're dwelling on too much. I've always been one for if it's a 2-metre or a 3-metre or a 20-metre kick, it doesn't matter. If someone takes the mark, just blow the whistle, say it's a mark, and let's move on with the game. Because we're spending too much time now. Is it 10? Is it 15? Is it 20? Is it, like you said, 35-metre kicks aren't even being judged as 15-metre kicks. There was one on the weekend they said was short last night. Yesterday said that was short. That was definitely 25.
Yeah,
and yet they call play on. So look, they're messing it up, and I think you're better off just removing that altogether and just saying, look, I understand we need a distance. You don't want things that are going from here to 3-4 metres as being judged as marks, but it just sounds like we're either getting to the point where, like you said, we have to mark the field, or they're talking about chipping the ball. I don't know whether chipping the ball was purely for kicking a goal or whether it was actually to detect distance.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they do it in golf balls. Like they can judge a distance in the golf ball when it flies through the ball. Yeah, so, do they have something in their ear that says that was 12, that was 22?
Do we have to get to that time? I mean, come on.
No, that's what I
mean. You can see on TV, you can see it live on the ground. We all know. That's 15 metres. Why? It seems as there's been another directive from AFL to speed the game out, push the game forward, and it's all about let's take those short kicks out and get them moving.
And I don't mind that if that's genuinely what they want to do, if they do want to move along. What the problem is that guys are stopping because they think they've taken the mark. So they're not actually, and then they're hearing the play on, and by the time they heard the play on, they've already been tackled and it's on the ground and you're balling it up. So you haven't sped anything up.
No, they have.
If the guy's out in the open and you call play on, not 15, that's great. He gets to dispose of it whichever way he wants. If he takes a genuine mark and think he's got it and he stops because he thinks, that was 20, 25, just 15, 16, whatever it is, then you're going to have this a bigger problem of them having to ball it up, stop the game. Who's rucking? Put your hand up, boys. Come on, we need to find it. That's the other one that gets me.
At times, isn't it?
Why do we nominate him for rucks anymore? If the third guy goes up, you pay the free kick. It's as simple as that. If you, as a team, cannot figure out who's going to ruck for you,
but it's like the whole 6-6-6 rule. Why do we go back to the middle and the umpire then blows his whistle, points to the defending team and goes, warning, 6-6. Why not just pay
I know.
the
And
ball?
but that's the AFL saying they don't want to pay the ball, don't want to pay the free kick against the 6-6. Because I think they understand from the middle, that's definitely, it's almost 90-something% a goal if you get a free kick in the centre square.
Look, I try to be fair, try to be objective. Watching your game last night, now I'm a Crows supporter, Power, 13-0 free kicks in the second half.
Yeah, that was... And most of them were not. I don't know about not there, but most of them were those really thin 51 to 49%ers that they weren't calling in the first half.
Yeah.
Now
this is happening a fair bit though? This is, I could list a number of games.
The problem is that happened to you guys just before half time. As much as it pains me to say, there was some shocking calls that got Geelong back into that game late in that quarter. But this seems to be the pattern though, and I'm not sure if it's where this comes from. Is it's just a subconscious thing that thinks, oh, this team's down, they're not going to win it anyway. Let's take it easy on them.
But why is it happening more and more? I haven't noticed it being as one-sided in games previous years as compared to this year.
Again, I totally agree with you. And one of my biggest bugbears is umpiring inconsistencies.
Yeah.
They paid the Meek free kick just before half time, where he's holding, they're both holding each other. And then all of a sudden you just see the little bit of a tug of a shirt and they go, holding. But they were hugging each other. They were virtually dancing together.
It doesn't need to be a mindset shift. Let's not do interpretation. If it's a law, pay the law.
I understand that, but it's in the eye of the beholder, I think, from the umpire perspective. What you consider a holding the ball and what I consider a holding the ball are totally different. So, I'm one I'm very much get rid of that ball unless you're absolutely being mugged as you take that ball. Then of course not.
Yeah.
But the rule when it was this whole, you have to have enough time to get rid of it. Just go back to the old rule.
Yeah, seeing the umpire lately, it's like a bloke walking down to the beach with a hose, a garden hose, to measure the tide.
Yeah,
it's completely useless and it's completely irrelevant.
Well, at the end of it all, I mean, it is what it is, and then we hear that some people love the fact that it's inconsistent and it causes arguments and it causes debates. And I'm one that just says, if that's a rule, let's just stick to it.
Yeah,
there should be no difference between the first quarter and the last quarter, the holding the ball here and the holding the ball there. You don't stop blowing the whistle because there's 30 seconds to go in the game. If it's a free kick, it's a free kick, pay it.
Yeah.
And then you get the people who say, no, don't do that, let the boys play.
Yeah.
The thing that gets me, though, is that players understand what they can and can't get away with. So if I'm grabbing you and the umpire's over there and he's watching me grab you and he doesn't blow the whistle, I think, it's interesting. Try that again.
Yeah.
And I impede you again, and he still doesn't blow his whistle. So all game, I impede you until I get caught, until the umpire goes, hey, hang on.
Yeah, and that's when you see when you see the player frustration boiling, because why didn't you ping those first 4 times? And now that you've pinged me for now, why?
Yeah. And the amount of times I saw players from both sides yesterday turn to the umpire and say, that was whatever it was.
Yeah. There's been passages of play. I think it was the Brisbane West Coast game where there was an incident on the wing where both players thought it was holding the ball or a free kick, and both sets of players stopped, and the ball's just rolling out of play. Yeah. And then when they realised, oh crap, it's not going to be paid, they all flocked to the ball. So you got to chip.
And those type of things make the game look really ridiculous because the players know what is and isn't.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, they're waiting for like, how many times did you see them? Like, there was in the third quarter, it was, I think, someone took a mark and everybody stopped. And the umpire was, no, play on touch. And they were, okay, so it was just a ball up in the end. But again,
it should be a simple look. AFL's a complicated game. It's 360 degrees. It's full on. And there's a lot of rules and different interpretations. But why can't we just keep it simple so that, KB from Philly can tune in halfway across the world and see, and understand?
Yeah, I don't think you could ever make the game that simple, unfortunately.
No.
It's when you grow up with it and you know what's happening, you know the rules. Like I've sat with friends who've come over from Canada and people who've come from Italy and relatives who've come from Italy, and we're taking them to games and they're like totally lost.
Yeah.
And even when you're explaining what's going on, they're still totally lost. But it is such a difficult game to watch sometimes and to understand. It's enjoyable to watch, but it's difficult to understand what's happening unless someone, and even when someone's sitting there saying it to you, like the Canadian friend who came over said, why are they blowing the whistle?
You say it's enjoyable to watch, though, but I find myself watching less and less neutral games out of frustration.
I mean, as a first-timer or as an infrequent watcher, as someone who doesn't watch the game a lot.
Yeah, it's like that new feeling. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. But, I just find myself watching less and less games.
Yeah.
I'm watching 9 games a week.
Yeah.
Betting across 9 games a week.
Watching that Carlton West Coast game was like...
Oh, that was the worst 70-point win I think I've seen anything achieve.
I've watched some bad games. I've sat through some bad games at Footy Park.
2012?
I've watched some bad games in my life. We got flogged one day by 150-odd points. Yeah. And I still don't think it was as bad as what I saw in the weekend between Carlton and
That's pretty bad.
That's
pretty bad.
There weren't even guys standing the mark. The discipline of West Coast and their defence was just non-existent. And for Carlton to just muddle their way through it, that was a 150-point win for them, and they pulled off a 12-goal win in the end.
Yeah, but you have to look at where both sides are at. Carlton were in red-hot form coming in.
Well, look, that's true, but they were competitive. And when you looked at that, I just thought they stuck in some games. Like, they played some good teams, and they were managed to stay in the contest. They wouldn't have won. They didn't win them, but they stayed in the contest. But that game was just... That was the typical dragging you down to my level. Yeah, that game. That's what it seemed like to me. And Carlton were, of course, just happy to get away with it.
What was the score? 17-19 to, 6-14 or something?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Could you imagine Vossi if he'd lost that game? I mean...
But that West Coast, speaking about West Coast for a minute, that list build, what is that? Are they rebuilding or are they grabbing players to retain Harley Reid? Because that's what it looks like.
Well, it could be a bit of both. It could be a bit of a rebuild and trying to keep Harley Reid. It smacks of someone who knows...
Smacks of Don Pike. Yeah. That's a Don Pike thing.
Yeah, and it also looks to me like he's playing along for the moment.
Yeah.
But if he's out the door, he's out the door. Like, I think he's already made the decision and he's probably gone, but that's not... I don't know that for any certainty. But he looks like a player who certainly doesn't want to be there, and he's also sick of the... Now, if he thinks that he's under scrutiny in West Coast, if he's going back to Melbourne, you're going to be under some scrutiny back in Melbourne there, mate.
Oh, yeah.
Trust me, Harley, you will be out of the fishbowl and into the Sharks tank. Because if you don't perform in Melbourne for one of the big Victorian sides, they will eat you alive.
Oh,
we saw it with Jack Watts, didn't we?
They will. And
we saw how they killed Jack Watts, and week after week, and that wasn't a good Melbourne team.
No.
And they went nowhere, and yet he was the whipping boy.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, if the rumours are true, he's been linked to the Bombers.
Well,
and look how Bombers are going lately.
Well, look, but I can see them going somewhere. The Bombers, I can see that list build coming. It might not be here this year or next year, but by the time I think Tassie's in, they'll be up high enough that any concessions that Tassie get won't affect them.
No, yeah,
and they could be building towards something where I honestly, before that Hawthorn win, and I said this to you last week, I dread the fact that we could be going down and we might be at the bottom when Tassie comes through, and we could be in a world of hurt for 10 years. If they don't do something this year, we could definitely find ourselves in a position. Look, one win doesn't make your season.
No.
They were good against Richmond after being poor against Collingwood. But they should have come out and they should have done better against Essendon. They definitely should. That last quarter against St Kilda was just diabolical.
The whole game was diabolical.
The game was there to be won in that last quarter, and that was just
kicking the ball blindly.
Exactly.
They're forward 50.
If they can keep that up, I know I'm being too much of a homie here, but that's what we expect week in, week out, and that's been why everybody gets so frustrated with Ken and the boys. Because it's not a week in, week out. The good teams will give you that consistency. Sure, they'll blow a game here and there. That happens. Even the great premiership Richmond sides, Hawthorn sides got lost games by, big margins.
So do you think your team can kick a winning score. Now, scoring is becoming 100 points. It's if you're not scoring 100 points, you're at the mercy of what the opposition can get.
Well, that's it. And we saw that over the weekend. Only one team didn't fail to score 100 points, and that was 96. That was Essendon. So it is going to be the new, the new monitor there, the new mark of can you kick 100?
Yeah.
And yet you guys copped a fair bit for letting Essendon kick.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things is I don't care how much we concede as long as we're scoring one more point than the opposition. And again, I don't really hold any fears if we concede 118 and we score 100 ourselves.
Yep.
Because the way the game is going and it's trending is you have to score 100 week in, week out.
Yeah.
And, you know...
That's fine when it's dry and it's hot.
Yep.
Once we hit the dead of winter and it's cold and it's rainy, those
things will drop. But also, again, old teams, and it's the same with Port, same with Crows, there's a lot of changes, a lot of list changes. With the Crows, it's the midfield. And where I see the Crows falling down, it's the midfield hasn't quite got the team defence down pat. Yeah. They're the ones that seem to be trailing in. The half forwards seem to be pushing up well. The back line seems to be holding up pretty well, considering we're scoring 100 points a game. Yeah. It's what the midfield's doing. And if you don't have your team set up all around the ground to play defence, it's hard to contain teams now.
Absolutely.
Again, we spoke earlier about how the AFL want the game to speed up by stopping those shorter kicks. So if you're not switched on defensively, you will concede a score.
Yeah, you will. We are moving into a faster game, moving the ball by hand. You can see that looks like the new model of how to win. That's the fear I have with that high impact intensity game that we seem to want to play. That takes it out of you. That takes it out of the body. It hurts. You come off week in, week out. That's where you fall down, and that type of thing. You'll find that most teams, especially come finals, can move the ball really quickly, and it's not a stoppage game. We still play that high stoppage game. All of our quarters went 32 plus, all four of them. So that also means week in, week out, if you're having 42 plus 44s, we had a 44 yesterday, and I think we might have even got 34, and it might have even got into a 35 for one quarter. That all adds up to an extra game. I think last year we played 2 extra games than everybody else because of our stoppage game.
Yeah.
So the minutes caught up to us that badly that we were just, and that takes it out. Yeah, and so we have to find a better way of moving the ball without having that high stoppage. Intensity, it's great. I love it. You want to see the boys get in there and you want to see the bodies hitting and you want to see the tackles.
But it takes its toll.
It takes its toll.
Yeah. And you've got to find different ways to win.
Yeah. And different teams will give you different things.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you shut down one thing. Sydney will be a different prospect to Hawthorn, and we saw what Collingwood did to us. Richmond were, I hate to say witches' hats, but that's essentially is what they came off of that. And whether that's a Carlton thing, because they played Carlton the week before, and they had that emotional win, so they come to Adelaide flat. But you're right. You're going to have to find a lot of different ways to win, and we can't be playing that way. You look at the way you move the ball; it's end to end. You're the number one team for moving it down the field from defence to scoring.
Yeah,
easily too. Sometimes it's just without any problem at all.
And we can do it without Thilthorpe in the forward line. This is things that we've been arguing over. Is Thilthorpe has value around the ball whenever we need him.
No.
And saw it on the weekend, saw it against the Gold Coast. When he went into the ruck, he changed the game and got it back on our terms.
If he takes one to a knee, if he takes one to the...
You've got to live with that. You have to live with it.
Okay, you live with it, but you lose probably your number one key forward. I'd rather you send Tex into that role. Now, it doesn't bother me, but I think Tex that's where his value is now. Because at the end of it all, it's just his last year. It might be his second to last year. Who knows? If he's good enough, he plays another year. Good on him.
Yeah, I don't mind that move of Tex going into the ruck.
Yeah, I think Thilthorpe is the wrong place. He shouldn't be playing in the ruck. It's too dangerous. Guys do knees in the ruck. I mean, he only takes a knee with the ribs and he's got a couple of busted ribs.
It's a freak injury. It's a freak injury if it happens. I'm willing to.
None of the coaches looking at someone going, "This guy shouldn't be beating you. He's beating you, and he shouldn't be beating."
But there's no control. I can't see anything wrong with a 5-minute spurt, and particularly when
I think you're crazy, man.
When he was at the Gold Coast,
thinking
20 points down, he has his stint in the ruck. He leaves the ruck 6 points down. Okay. Game's back on our terms.
Okay, it's back on your terms. He can do the same thing from centre half forward and run up and down the field and still take control of that game.
Yeah, no. He offers something different around the ball. He is super clever. There's a lot of things that you don't see that don't go on the stat sheet. He's got such good touch for a big man, and he's great below his knees. And he draws. You watch him when he goes in. Watch this weekend.
More power to you,
when he goes in, he draws midfielders.
If you want to play him in the ruck and you want to risk him, he's already done one knee. So if you want to risk losing him for a season, for half a season, whatever it might be, go for it. It's not for me to tell you when to play your players.
I understand that. But
I just don't understand it. It's too valuable.
Yeah, we can live without him for a short period. And if it means that we have to go backwards this year, then so be it.
Yeah. Look,
I think this is Riley O'Brien's last full year as a ruckman. So once that changes...
he was not good on Thursday night. And he had mates. He had Laird was that last quarter. He'd want that again.
His colours, yeah.
He'd want that quarter again, I think. For a veteran to play that way in that last quarter is,
Look, it's easy for me to say because I'm not out there running around. I'm not fatigued.
Yeah.
But kicking into the man mark.
Well, again, that's a statue.
Yeah. And it happened multiple times.
Go back, kick around, kick over, handball under, whatever you got to do, but kicking it.
But if someone of that experience, it shouldn't be happening at that time of the game. And, you hear commentators ask...
It's one thing I can agree with you on.
Yeah, the leaders to stand up. That's such a simple thing that a leader can do. It's just do the 1% things properly.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got Cameron and you've got Dangerfield down the other end, and what are they doing? They're not kicking into the man the mark. They're kicking goals. Exactly right. The leaders failed the Crows big time. Yeah. And, like I said, kicking into the man the mark when the game's on the line.
Fundamentals. That's what it's all about.
Unforgivable. And they end up losing by 3 goals.
Yeah.
It's such a cruel game.
Look, that's poor scheduling by the AFL. To have you guys backing up after being in Queensland, a hot day in Queensland. Back here, it was a hot day. That Thursday was 31 to 32.
Yeah.
And the night didn't look like it could cool down overnight.
No,
it was still
balmy
20s.
Yeah.
Beautiful night, but considering that you come back from Brisbane on a 35 degree, you play the game short, 5 days.
We did, but
you got set up there. I feel like we got set up there.
We came out, we did what we could and just ran out of gas. But again, it swings and roundabouts. GWS this weekend. We'll talk about it later. I'm sure that's a sure thing this weekend. Lock it in. Well, touch wood. It stays that way. But, they've got the rough end of the stick this week, GWS. 35 degrees on Sunday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep.
They've run out in that unforgiving sun. We were sitting with our feet up, resting, played Thursday night.
Yep.
Now the shoe's on the other foot. So there should be no excuses this weekend.
That's right. Should be no excuses. So heaven forbid if you lose.
Oh, God. I won't be turning up here next week.
I think Nixie might be head on the chopping block.
So we talked about it at the start, and I want to go over it now. The Willie Rioli thing.
Well, Willie puts out a tweet, Instagram, goes on Instagram, puts out a message about the showing the ball, says my hatred of them goes back more than just this rivalry between Port and the Hawks. It goes to my family, it goes to what they did to my family, it goes to what they did to my uncle, my father, my cousins, everyone. And then from what I understand, within 5 minutes, the Instagram message is removed. It's gone off Instagram. But not long enough for certain people not to see it.
So let me ask you a question. Is the Hawks Port, is this heading to WrestleMania? Is this the new Bloodline story?
Look, I think for some it will be. I think definitely for some it will be.
Because he might have deleted his tweet. He's been told. Either the AFL or the club has said.
Someone has said to him, he's changed his mind, perhaps.
But the Hawthorn players here, we've seen it.
Yeah, that's it.
This is going to live for some time now.
Remember, in this day and age, people know what's going to stay and what's going to go. Yeah. And people are smart enough to screenshot it in case it disappears because we can see the volatility of what has been said. Now, you and I both understand why he says that and where it comes from. I don't believe he was told to remove it because there was a chance that there could be lawyers involved, because I don't think that would have ever happened.
No.
He could line up.
Doesn't get that far.
He could line up probably 20 blokes who would say, yeah, they did it.
Yeah.
So there'd be no defamation at all there. I just don't think they like the look. They don't want it brought up again because they feel like they've dealt with it. This is the AFL, of course. And probably Hawthorn also. They feel like they've dealt with it. They felt like Clarko was exonerated and, everybody wants to move on and, so... And then he brings it up again, and I just think certain people went, come on, mate, let's just, Yeah. But they don't understand what is involved, or where he's coming from and what was involved, and the conversations he's probably had with guys like Cyril and his dad and his uncles and, all these guys. So it's an interesting take. For me personally, put it out there and leave it. He didn't vilify anybody. No, he didn't call anybody any names.
But, the AFL will use promotion for these hypocritical things. Because they're the biggest...
But it's over. They're not going to get nothing from it for the next 2 weeks.
No. And do you guys go to Victoria to play? I don't think you do.
No, we go to Tassie.
You go to Tassie?
We go to Tassie.
That's a big one for Tassie. Get your tickets.
Well, I don't know. We don't generally play well in Tassie.
No.
I think it's too...
But again, the Ken will still be around. Yeah. The emotions will still be flowing, and that's true. The one thing you can guarantee.
Surely this is dealt with now, isn't it? Surely this is the whole Ginnivan doing... I mean, the fans sort of doing this was a bit funny, and a couple of guys doing it near me was, that's great.
I think grown men doing that?
This guy's... then they see everybody in the crowd doing this, and I'm thinking, come on, people, it's time to move past that. Let's get on with it. Sydney next week. I don't want every time we play Hawthorn to be about Ken and Sicily and, going to Sydney and the aeroplane. It just... That's not what rivalries are built on, are they?
No.
The rivalry between our teams is built on a hatred from the supporters. The players don't hate each other. They'll tell you that.
Yeah. But is it starting to get to be that case? You've got Willie Rioli wagging the ball, in front of the Hawks supporters' face.
Again, that comes from a different place altogether, because he's coming from a family perspective. He's coming from my mob, you've wronged my mob.
It is, but given that now Hawthorn players have seen that tweet, do you think that they go, we understand why he did that now? Yeah,
maybe. I don't think that changes the fact that he showed the ball. Because like you said, he did that to you guys in the showdown.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So I think it is and I've seen him do that before when he was playing for West Coast too. I've seen him show the ball. So that's a Willie thing. Whether he intentionally thought I'm playing Hawthorn and if I get the chance and I'm in the goal square and I get to Joe the Goose, I'm going to let him have it.
Yeah.
It helped us out in the end because it turned a really tense game into what was a 4-goal margin into we kicked one and then Willie kicks two, so it took us from a 4 to a 7 and everybody was sitting back doing this now going happy days.
It's over,
So it relieved a lot of tension in the stadium, I can tell you that. Everybody just took a deep breath and went, thank goodness for that. But
no doubt.
I mean, does it build on the next one maybe? And maybe it's the McAndrew thing for when you play Gold Coast next week.
We're waiting.
This time.
See you. We'll see you soon, Mac.
I don't know that they're going to want to bring that up, though.
No, that's not something that AFL will promote. But, you've got texts coming out saying that they know when they're banking that.
Yeah.
And the supporters sure as hell will know. Yeah. And as soon as that week comes that it's Gold Coast next up, I can tell you it'll be all over the forums.
Yep. And I can guarantee you some reporter somewhere the next time we play Hawthorn in Tassie will bring up that you showed him the ball. It'll get brought up. Is there any hard feelings because Willie showed you the ball? But again, they were hugging after the game. Yeah. He went straight up to him and they both shook hands and they hugged each other and had a quick chat and then moved on to the next bloke, shook hands, hugged. Yeah. So it's all good and well while it's on the ground. I thought, I don't say this often, but I actually thought Ken outcoached Mitchell.
Yeah, okay. And that's saying something because he has a big thing for Mitchell.
That Rosie thing, like when I was sitting, because we were sitting floor level, northern side, 15 from the 50. First thing I saw when I looked up was Rosie standing Gilliman. And I thought, this is interesting. I said that to my cousin. and then he just took off, and it was the perfect matchup because he had the speed, he had the height, and he had the talent to take someone like Ginnivan on.
Yeah, and it forced Ginnivan to yeah, exactly. Think about his own game. Does he forfeit, or does he go with Rosie? And I think he ended up getting caught between, didn't he?
Yep. And that was the thing. And Rosie made him pay. 2 goals. He ran off. He was clean.
I'm not going to say it was Andrew McLeod-like, but that was as good as half-back performances I've seen.
I'd rather have Houston back. But if Rosie's the next best thing we got to Houston, and he's going to put him there and leave him there, I'd be happy with that.
Personally, if it was me, I'd leave Rosie there. I think the midfield mix you've got, it's okay.
It's growing, though. It is growing, and I was impressed by some of the performances of the lesser lights.
You don't get enough off half back. So the way modern football's played, you've got to be able to score from your back half.
And it allows Burgoyne to go back onto the wing, which I said to you, that's his best position, the wing.
Yep.
Absolutely. His drive from the wing is that link up between the half-backs and the half-forwards. That's where he plays his best footy.
Yep.
And that gives him that opportunity to move up to the wing with Rosie back. The other move I really loved was putting the 2 tough nuts on each other. That was Pau and Sicily. Sicily's a guy who can intimidate.
I thought Pau made Sicily look pretty ordinary.
Because also Pau Pepper's the type of bloke who'll put one on your chin.
Yeah.
And he won't think twice about it. He'll just explode.
Because I'm sure Sicily was put up forward because he was actually a liability.
Yeah.
And you don't often see that.
And you know what? He's a swingman, though. I'll give him his due. He is. But I think swingman.
In the perfect world, they wanted to leave him there.
Of course. He's first and foremost. He marshals the troops from the back. He's a good leader back there. When they were down after their great years, after their that riches they had back in the early 17s, 18, 19s, 20, whatever it was, 13, 14, 15. He stepped up and he kept, when they went down, he was the only one who was consistently playing good footy.
Yeah.
So, I'll give him his due, and he does it, and I love the guys.
Everyone would want them on his team, on their team.
Absolutely.
I'd have him in a heartbeat of the Crows, but
he's an intimidator, and he can turn forwards into jelly just by being a little bit rougher in the tackle, a little bit.
But I think psychologically as well, he gets into a lot of their heads.
He does. Because they know he's another one who's not afraid to put one on your chin.
Yeah.
And that was a brilliant move, I thought, because they just almost negated each other.
Yeah.
Pau Pepper probably gets on top because he kicks a couple of nice goals. They move Sicily forward, which tells me, again, as you said, he's a liability back. But it was also when he was, it was when they swapped and they put other backmen on him, he was also willing to go toe-to-toe with them. So, It was a good move. He's starting to come back. That knee injury that last year when he did
takes time.
It takes time.
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And the feel for the game, fitting in with, you're not playing the same. So we know what is expected of him. He's just got to feel his way in. And he's getting there. Because he's chaos. He's chaos at his best.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute chaos. So gather round, tick. They're coming back next year.
Absolutely, tick. Yeah.
What about the future? What are you hearing?
Well, Tassie. I'm hearing Tassie for 1 year. They reckon that once the Devils are in the year after, whether that's 28 or 29, they're going to do a one-off year in Tassie to sort of get that whole buzz, that whole atmosphere in Tassie.
And look, that'll be all right for a year, but I don't think it'll deliver what Adelaide delivers. I mean, look at the weather. Yeah. You've got some guy in his backyard in the Barossa putting the hose over the fence. What scenes? You don't get that anywhere else in the world, hey?
That was good.
It was unbelievable.
I say this in all fairness to Norwood. I'd love to see him have a better venue than Norwood. I understand why they do it at Norwood. That's fine.
Food and wine festival too.
Yeah. It's a pre-made. But the Overwatch just don't think suits the VFL style.
Get it out in God's country, hey? Centrals.
So, well, you've virtually got it if you Barossa's virtually Centrals.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure Mark Barker's the answer either.
I didn't mind it. And people this year, looking at people have said about it, is they missed that ground.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
It might be a better option than Norwood, but then you do want something that's in the suburbs, whether it's, something like that. So and Norwood's probably the pick of the bunch. You could have it at Alberton, but, you know, that's going to benefit an AFL team, and you probably can't do that either. So Norwood's probably your best pick. Unley's no good.
Yeah.
It's open. North Prospect's terrible.
Oh, where would you park?
Prospect.
Where would you park?
Yeah. So,
Dreadful.
yeah, again, Norwood's probably your best option, but I just don't know about the dimensions of the field, and it's good to view from. I've been there a few times, obviously, over the years. Seen a few AFLW games there.
Yeah.
It's a good viewing ground.
I think the ideal setup is, again, you've got Adelaide Oval centrepiece for your centrepiece games.
Yeah.
Got the Barossa for 2, and then Mount Parker for 2.
Yeah.
You know, leave the parade out. Leave RS NFL grounds out. That's where they can train. You know, have the clubs train, connect with the community.
Yeah.
I think everyone wins then.
What do you think about Geelong being stopped from going to Noarlunga to train at South Adelaide's ground?
Yeah, I don't know what was behind that.
Why?
I'm
not sure either.
No,
that was a bit weird because that was a big buzz. They were building it up.
Yeah.
They were telling everybody in the area
and then
that Geelong were coming down. Yeah, they had crowds there ready to greet them all and cheer them on, and then the word comes through, no, I'm not going to do it. AFL have said no.
Yeah, I don't know. What would have led to that?
Well, look, I don't know.
The ground wasn't conditioned?
Well, it looked good to me.
Okay.
Because they did a news report from there, and again, it looked good, but that doesn't mean it is good.
Yeah, there's going to be.
It could have been shifting. It could have been anything. It could have been, you know. But it just seems strange that they would let the community in that area gather round them and then just say no.
Yeah, exactly. All that promotion and let down. So, overall thoughts of gather round. What would you go with what Fox Footy is saying, and that was the best iteration of gather round?
I think it's building. I definitely, from the first year to this year, so this is 3, this is our 3rd one. I think it's a lot better this year than I did see in the first 2 years. I've been to all 3 years.
But was it the weather? I mean,
true.
30
that first year we had, I remember our game was wet. I can't remember. I think the whole day was wet, which meant there was also an Essendon Melbourne game at Adelaide Oval, which was played in the really heavy wet conditions. Then our game against the Bulldog was really torrential rain.
Yeah.
I think, you're right. The weather absolutely helps. No matter what you go, where you go, it was beautiful.
It helps add to the vibe too. People can get out, get around, you know, before their match, and you know, helps with the buzz.
And the amount of people I saw wearing opposition Guernseys, like just mixing.
Yeah.
You know, everybody. I saw, you know, and I ran into a lot of people from Victoria, from New South Wales, from Brisbane. There was some people down from the NT. So, you know, people were travelling. You know, a lot of people drove down. I ran into a couple today. I was filling up and they were from Victoria. I said, you know, Melbourne stickers on. I said, disappointing. They went, yeah, but, you know, we're used to it. I said, you're heading home now? They go, yeah, we're just fueling up. And they were on their way home to Melbourne. They were, you know, going back to Victoria. So people hung around, obviously.
Yeah.
So their game was, what, Saturday?
Yeah, the start of the week in the city, it was chockers. And you just had that feel. And a lot of tourists wearing their scarves at Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, even if their team wasn't playing until Sunday. So awesome to see. And again, it should be something they lock here permanently.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think they will. If they get through that Tassie launch, then say it, lock it, and keep it here. Because, you know, we look at what is said around, and it seems to be outside of South Australia, the fans love it.
Yeah.
So that's what matters.
And the numbers were good.
Yeah.
I think virtually every game was a sellout. I was a bit disappointed with our crowd. I honestly thought that would be 50 plus. I was shocked to hear it was 47.
You guys turn out for those big games, so
I was.
To see it below 50, I was stunned.
I was stunned at that too. Yeah. But I did look up into the South Bank stand, and there was a lot of empty seats right at the top level, which surprised me. But I mean, you take the 47, it was over 200,000 for the whole weekend.
Yeah.
Barossa was chockers for their 2 games. Norwood was chockers for their 2 games. Most of the Adelaide Oval games were pretty
much close to capacity. Yeah.
So and the AFL would absolutely be over the moon.
Oh, they should be. You know, no one does a festival better than South Australia, and we did it.
Yeah, I think the only thing they messed up with was, as I said to you earlier, was your game. You guys never should have been playing off a 5
Thursday night. Yeah, but they always look. We one of our fixture requests each year is we want to open gather round. So that's it's kind of on us.
Well, then it's the week before. It's the week before. Then they needed to schedule that week before against
Yeah,
Gold Coast better than.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen him play Gold Coast in the middle of winter, not at the start when you've got that 30-odd degree high humidity. It's a killer. And then you come back and play on a short turnaround. Yeah, I'm not making excuses, but it's reality. So let's leave football there. Let's talk about the Sheffield Shield.
Wow.
It's been and done a while now.
Yeah.
Dust has settled. What a season.
Yeah.
You dropped the Redbacks moniker, and look what happened.
And not just that, drop your coach, the favourite son. Yeah. He must have felt about as flat as what he was after he made 200 and took. What did he take in that game? 7 wickets.
7 wickets. Never to be seen from again.
7 wickets and 200. I don't know too many players who are still fit in the next season and miss out on never play again, actually.
No.
So he must have felt just as flat when good old Dizzy.
Yeah, and then Ryan Harris coming in with his
favourite son.
If we're not feeling like training today, let's go home and hit the piss.
Hit the piss, yeah.
Yeah.
Great attitude.
Brilliant strategy.
Absolutely great attitude.
And that's all they needed.
And Lehman took full advantage of let's hit the piss.
You've only got to look at who performed well this year to see who likes their beers. And sure enough,
absolutely
top of that list, particularly when the whips come cracking, was Jake Lehman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, really good to see because he's been a maligned player for some time, and living in his dad's shadow. Yeah.
And most
so now
of that
he's made his own
I agree with you, but most of that is of his own doing. Look, no one's beaten the boy down. No one has, made it hard for him. He might have even had it easy because of the old man. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't speak for him. Yeah. But he has been one who's, I don't know, do we always expect the son to be better than the father? Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, there is that expectation.
Yeah, so maybe, some of that is, well, your dad was...
It was, but you think about when he first came in, and you front page of the advertiser, and they're all dancing on after a loss. Dancing on the table at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. The culture, I don't think, was right.
No.
You put a bunch of young, immature lads together and hope they grow together. And I don't think it worked. They needed to have those experienced heads to sort of guide them through that and teach them professionalism. And I don't think they had that. So,
well, look, when Ryan Harris left South Australia, he was our best batter and bowler. And they got, I don't know why they got rid of him, but for some reason they decided they no longer needed him. The Redbacks decided they no longer needed him, and he went to Queensland, of course. Actually made the Australian side because he was playing.
Yeah. Well, he had to learn some new skills up there, and
that's right. So he leaves to South Australia as one of their best batsmen and bowlers in that season, and comes back as the coach who wins both the
Shield and One Day comp. And if he was coaching the strikers, he's winning the comp with the strikers.
They'd almost be willing to say, hey.
Painey, step aside,
son. Yeah. Let's see what Ryan can do.
Phenomenal year. And look, some of the performances, like McAndrew, leading wicket taker, discarded from New South Wales.
That's right. I never understood that. I always thought he was a good bowler.
Yeah, you can see in the T20 comps that he's got a bit with the bat, he's got a bit with the ball.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Jakey Lehman. But shout out to the absolute legend of Alex Carey, who... It's his time off. He could have sat home. Right. He could have. And,
absolutely. And his innings in those 2 games that he played against Queensland, just a legend, Alex. I mean, I know that we have a go at each other over Head and Alex Carey, and, because Head's a Power supporter and Carey's a Crows supporter.
Crows ambassador.
So, I mean, look, full credit to him. And you know what? And Head's somewhere else. He went off to the IPL, so he decided...
fighting with Maxwell and Storms today.
Yeah. So, and, that's up to him. That's the money, and they're chasing the money, and he's got a family now, and he needs to look after his family, cash in while he can, because, we all know the gravy train, and he's in his 30s, so it doesn't last forever. No. I do worry about Kerry because they're playing...
England next time?
Yeah. And Inglis is in the team. That worries me a bit. It's it almost feels like the Grim Reaper tapping him on the shoulder, having Inglis in the.
I'm not so worried now because I think he's now feels comfortable at that level. He's scoring Test match hundreds in Sri Lanka.
Yeah,
and his first class form, they can't seem to get him out below 100.
Yeah.
So
it still interests me because we go back to the Gillespie thing. Like how many people do you know scored a double ton and took 7 wickets in their last game? Were still fit.
You sound like a South Australian under attack. He's not. They're not going anywhere. And, everyone talks about Alex Carey and his training standards, and the fact that he's such a good bloke. You don't discard someone like that straight away.
You don't. That's right. Look, but they've had the pattern of doing that.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's a different regime now. Yeah. And Alex Carey is someone that I want in my team. I want around. I want any young bloke coming into that team to room with him.
Yeah.
Top-notch bloke, professional athlete. You know what you're going to get. It's consistent. The only thing that he could have been tossed out for, and he's now dispelled that, is his runs.
Yeah.
It's keeping in the subcontinent first freaking class.
Yeah.
Absolute first class. He's making the Sri Lankan keeper, when they were over in Sri Lanka, look pretty average. That's conditions that they play in all the time.
It's interesting because it comes down to coaching, and I remember they did an interview with Head and they said, look, what's changed? And he said, well, under Langer, they try to change everything. They try to get him to be more traditional and they just didn't want him to play his game.
Yeah.
And he said, but McDonald just said, go out there, mate. We know you got talent. Just play. Just play.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. Sometimes it just takes that coach to just back you.
Yeah, but I also noticed a bit of, I guess, a change. When Carey had that run in the World Cup, the England World Cup a few years ago, he was our best batsman in that tournament. And how he did that was, it didn't matter if we were 4 or 5 down, he'd just play aggressively.
Yeah.
I've noticed that he's now gone back to that approach and he just plays aggressive. It doesn't matter if it's first class. It doesn't matter if it's test match. He's pushing the pace, and that's where he looks best. Where I've seen him struggle in the past was when he goes about it in a more traditional sense and tries to build an innings. Alex is better off served, from what I've seen, pushing the issue. And look, if he gets out for 30 off of 20, so be it. Yeah, he's not getting out for 15 off of 30, scratching around.
You got to pick your moments. So if it's, if you're 5 or 6 down, and
we're not talking that. You remember that ridiculous Haddon shot in South Africa where he come down the wicket? What were we, 5 for like 15?
Yeah, 5 for 15.
Yeah, he just played that bloody big shot. Yeah, what an embarrassment. Isn't it funny that sticks in your mind?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. They're the things that often do stick in your mind.
But I'll tell you what, if that came off that day, he knocks that for 6, gets into his innings, we'd be saying, what a bloody brilliant innings. Yeah. He's changed the match.
Yeah.
So, you look by the sword, die by the sword.
Those type of players are very rare that can just take the hand. Like there was a quote from, I think it was one of the Indian players that said they were talking about Maxwell, and he's like Haley's Comet. He only once every 75 innings.
That's Mandraker that said that.
Yeah, Mandraker, that's right. So, and I thought that's a bit harsh on him, but then you look back and you think, well, he comes with a huge hype, big show, take on the world, he can take it out of your hands.
Yeah.
How often does he really deliver? And he's delivered big for Australia. Let's face it.
Yeah.
That 200 in that semi-final it was just one to watch. I've still got that on the Foxtel where I've recorded it, and I watched it not long ago. That and then the final with Head taking the final away from India.
Oh, I bet you watch that repeat.
So, and you do think, well, the guys like that are valuable, but sometimes they do have to show up more than...
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And, there's one thing going out there and playing that ridiculous go from ball one. And he backs himself in to do that. But you're right, there are some times where just get the ball on the bat. And it's funny because some of Maxwell's best innings has been when he started slow and he's worked his way in, and that's when he's gone off.
Yeah.
And I think in reverse, Carey's better off pushing that pace early. Yeah. And that doesn't mean, like I said, Brad Haddon running down the wicket, try to belt a good length ball for 6.
Yeah.
But just look to score.
Yeah.
Don't get bogged down, because when Alex Carey gets bogged down, he gets stuck. And that's when a rash shot or a judgment error will come in.
Yeah.
Don't think about it, just go about it.
Well, often aggressive players are aggressive players. And in any sport, doesn't matter what you...
And he's in that perfect position where he's in there for his keeping. But he can counter punch.
Yeah.
And when he's counter punching, I find those are the best type of wicket keepers. It's the ones that counter punch.
I think the problem is we measure all our wicket keepers by the Gilchrist standard, and you're never gonna live up to that Gilchrist standard.
No.
Like they look at English and they think, could he be the next Gilchrist? He was a diamond, Adam Gilchrist, absolute diamond. And you just don't get those guys coming around every generation. They skip a few, and then you'll find the next one. So stop. I think we need to stop measuring everybody by the Gilchrist measurements.
Yeah, well, it was like we still haven't recovered every spinner that comes in into the next Shane
Warney. Yeah.
And then the next,
again.
Unfortunately for off spinners or finger spinners coming through, will be who's the next Nathan Lyon. So, Todd Murphy has to live with it.
Yeah.
Kuhneman, I don't see him sticking around for long. He's 29, 30.
Well, he's still a subcontinent, though, Bob.
He is.
He's no good at home, but he's great on the subcontinent.
No, he's pretty much our version of Jadeja. Just that grip, rip, and then let the wicket do for itself. And then he just lands that ball in a 10-cent piece.
But, he's earned himself a contract, which is great for him.
Yep.
Which is the other thing.
He's produced every time he's played.
What's an Australian contract worth? It just means what?
Yeah.
Because, you look at them and they add people and they drop people and they...
Well, someone like a Giant Richardson who hasn't played gets a contract. Morris.
Yeah.
Lance Morris. Why is he getting another contract?
I don't know. That's what I mean. Why they... Yeah. What do they mean, these contracts?
They're not worth a lot.
It's not worth a lot because you add and you drop and you add and you subtract and whoever you want. So at the end of the day, they offer, what is it, 15?
Yeah.
Offer 15, but often at the end of the year, at the end of the cricket season, we're up to 17, 18, 19.
Well, that's right. And, someone like Constance getting a contract.
That's right.
A couple of test matches and, one good innings.
Yeah.
He's got a contract off the back of that.
Yeah.
A bit early for that, I reckon.
Well, look, and he'll be an absolute.
Yeah, and look, I don't mean to be, but they're investing in potential there.
Yeah,
but what happened to? And is there leeway when you're only handing out 15 contracts to give to potential, or do we give to players that have actually earned it?
Yeah, I think you should always go for earned over potential because you can add potential. Like
19
costs
19, so he's got plenty of time to get that contract.
Yeah.
Don't hand it out. Just for the sake of
it. Again, what does it mean? What's the point of the contract if you can add him at a point down the track and
it's just extra pay in their pocket?
That's it.
Yeah, that's it, and it keeps the state's salary cap, I guess, good too as well. So, closing out, what's your predictions for this weekend? Have you got? So when we're talking predictions, we're not talking about whoever's playing the Tigers. I want a red hot 50-50.
I reckon a 50-50.
Yeah.
If my 50-50 is. I guarantee you Geelong will beat Hawthorn. I think Geelong will be too physical for them. I think that's what they came up against Port. They weren't expecting that physicality.
Mm-hmm.
If you can stop that run and the thing about the physical game is it stops them from also running in packs, Hawthorn. Like that's what got them over the line against GWS, 3-4 blokes running in chains. They did it last night too in the second half. They were running in chains while Port were trying to get their breath, and then they sort of took back the momentum some of the time Sport. So I think Geelong's physicality might be similar to what Port bring, and I think that might undo Hawthorn. So my prediction is that Geelong will beat the Hawks.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I'm not prepared to go on a limb there. But I will say Adelaide will beat Giants. I can't see any other result, Again, talk about in reverse. We talked about it. Geelong had a 6-day break, didn't play in the heat. We are now in the other roles, probably in a better position.
Yep.
GWS played 35-degree heat, 2:00 in the afternoon. They've only got a 6-day break. We've been sitting on our butts since Thursday night, and I can't see any other result. If we can keep it tight till halftime, we'll run over the top.
Yeah,
it's impossible now to recover quickly and. Yeah. When you're playing in that sort of heat, it does take its toll. And as much as I see supporters saying, don't make excuses, don't make this, don't make that, you've got to be realistic.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't think it's being unfair to say if the Giants aren't up by 30 points or more, then they're out of it.
I see your point. I just think this is a different Giants side.
It is, but you have to remember gas in the tank.
But I also, they don't play here anyway.
No, they don't. We beat them here last year.
Yeah, that's it. I don't think they've won in something like 6 or something, 1 in 7 over here in Adelaide. So,
and the way we play, and we've got gut busting runners now.
Yeah,
that will expose them. And it was like Bailey Smith on Thursday night. He ran all day long, and whoever was on him, I heard that they got chopped out and a new opponent got put in because they were tamed.
Yeah,
they were tamed.
Yeah.
So that's what we have the potential to do to the Giants. If we can get that running game up and going, we'll run them off their legs.
Look, I said to you pre-season, I thought Neil Bullen would be a huge loss to Melbourne because he plays that swing man. He could put him anyway.
Yeah.
Centre, wing, back, forward. He knows the momentum swings. He's got that experience now. He knows when to go back and he knows when to go forward. He just
runs all day long.
That's it. And he'll run all day. Exactly. He'll run all day
long. And you don't have a good appreciation to how far he runs and how long he runs until you're at the ground.
That's right. Yeah.
If you're not going to the ground, check the Telstra tracker on the AFL app. He's always number one distance covered.
And then a loss like that to Melbourne is something I thought they would really regret. And you can see it now because they don't have that link man. They don't have that gut bust runner. And you guys do.
Yeah.
So, as the season wears on, because I noticed when they interviewed Rosie after the game, he said, look, a few new players in the side, it's going to take time. And I thought, that's fair enough, Like, of course, you want to, especially if it's up forward, because that's a different beast to just chucking a bloke in the midfield or putting him down back where he's just got to intercept or he's punching balls all day. So the same thing with you guys. You've introduced 3 quality bit players.
Yeah. That's all we need.
If it gets right in the second half, watch out.
Yeah. And I that's the way I see it. You've got Keys, you've got Neil Bullen, and our half-backs press up higher than anyone.
Yeah.
Mitch Hinge, just the amount of power running he does, it's incredible. It's incredible. So, I think if we can get out in the open, it's where it concerns me is the inside. And we got cut up against Geelong.
Yeah.
But we're really good against the Gold Coast. And I hope it was just a case of just being a little bit flat, a little bit off. And it's not a case of, against the Gold Coast, that was an outlier.
Mm.
I don't believe that that's an outlier, but we'll find out this weekend.
Generally, watching the game, you could generally see you ran out of steam.
Yeah.
You could. It wasn't for lack of effort. It was just purely you were out. Yeah. So I do, like you said, while it's not an excuse, it is a reality that turnaround was just not, it was not good for you.
And look, if it was a player saying this, if it was a coach saying this, I'd say stop making excuses. Mm-hmm. But you're allowed as fans to make that excuse.
Well, look, excuses are about as good as your team players because I could have said to you, well, we're missing Zor Thatcher, we're missing Brothers, we're missing this, we're missing that. Pieces are not there. Got to gel, do whatever, And then I honestly didn't see us winning that game at all, let alone being up by the best part of 12 goals at one point in that game. So
that was the only thing I didn't see coming. I didn't see you getting out of that part. But I did say, Port will put on a bloody good showing because, again, it's that emotional side. Just 10 goals, I didn't see that coming.
And Logan Evans goes out and obviously fuzzy head gets himself suspended. Good old Darcy Byrne-Jones. So that weakened the team, in my opinion. And I said this to you earlier, Bo, I'd love to see him play 400. But he's looking like it's not the body, it's just the game. The game is now it's at that next level, and next year will go up another level.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't find that kick, which is going to be hard at what is he now, 37, 38?
Getting on.
It's going to be hard to find that next little kick to get him.
Yeah, and
I think he might be stuck in the 380s, high 380s before, saying, sorry guys, I've had enough. Which is unfortunate because I've said this to you many times. I think he could possibly be, if he does make it to 400, he could possibly be the last 400 player for a good 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
We may not see another one for a good while because the game's too hard and it's too fast.
You don't think Dangerfield will get there?
Don't know Dangerfield. His body lets him down.
It does. But I don't know if you heard him post-match. He said that he's not going to miss any games and he wants to go hard. He said, the moment I start taking the foot off the gas, that's when I'm going to be, put in position of injury.
You know what? But I think the body has a lot to do with it. The mind can do amazing things.
Yeah.
It's the body that often lets you down.
Let you down. But if he's stationed in the goal square and he plays, again, what I saw on Thursday night,
that's maybe what it has to be.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to see him in the midfield anymore.
Yep.
His goal is, again, a lot like Power Pepper, just chaos. That's all he did.
Yep.
He presented so much chaos in it. All the Geelong forwards profited with him being there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What's he on now?
I don't know. Not off the top of my head, but if they station him down the goal square, he could extend his career.
No, if he needs another 3 or 4, it might be a bit hard. But if he only needs a couple to 3, maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows?
One to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Could be. And he's the type of bloke who would push himself to be.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's not going until his body says no. That's it. Yeah. Again, what's he got left to play for when you think about it? He's done it all.
True. I mean, he's got it all. He's got the premiership. He's got the Brownlow. He's got the. Probably he'll be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. CEO one day.
Well.
Yeah, I'm not.
If you want.
Oh, look, he's trending that way, isn't he? AFL Players Association. You either love him or you hate him.
Look, I think he's the type of bloke who, once he's done, I think will just get on his boat and go fishing 5 days a week. And
I don't know. I could see him even running for Parliament, Prime Minister of Australia one day.
Yeah, I don't know.
He loves the limelight. Come on.
Yeah, true. I don't know him well enough to know what he's going to do after footy.
He's got his fishing show. He's got he's got a lot going on. I don't think he's going to lay still.
Yeah, you could be right.
He could end up being a senior coach. I just don't think Dangerfield's going to slip away into the private life. That's it.
What do you think of Paul Marsh, stepping down?
Yeah, look, I think that was inevitable. I think he was always going back to cricket. I don't know. Were you thinking the same?
Well, I always wondered why he was the AFL. I mean, given his background and given whose son he is,
an attractive role though.
Yeah, it always just never. I don't know, and I never felt like he
did a great job.
Yeah, no, I don't know whether that was just perception.
But there was a lot of. I mean, he's got a lot more constituents in AFL, so that's probably why it was attractive to him to come across. Cricket is very much, 11 aside plus then your reserves.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot, and 6 states?
Yeah.
There's not a hell of a lot of constituencies.
No,
so
you're right. But
even though it's an international game, AFL was a bigger challenge for him.
Yeah, but now he's going to cricket, so
yeah, cricket's game. Possibly, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for tuning in, folks. Well, hopefully we'll see you same time next week.
Yeah, and just remember, if you go to the toilet and you're an Aussie and you go to the toilet, what are you while you're in the toilet?
What?
European.
Oh, you go.
Thank you.